So I have a bit of an opinion here. I reckon it's actually better to make weird games than be making safe generic games. Like, even if it's completely whack, I think honestly you have more of a chance of getting some sort of success versus, doing something that's completely boring and like everyone else does. Like, what do you reckon about that?
It's totally true. Like when you introduced this to me last time we talked, it was like immediately apparent to me. You can either try to make like a bad version of like Counter Strike, or you can make like a tiny, unique version of like a variant of Counter Strike, and that's going to be better like every day.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
found it's not just that you have to make like a really weird game. You can just have like one element that's weird, and that could be more than enough to make something that's like super unique and engaging. One little gameplay mechanical hook that really takes it above the edge. And that could be literally anything. It could be and actually I want to tie this sort of into like back when I was in uni, I was taught that it's not a good thing to describe your game like as if it's another game. So like for
Yeah.
example, we talk about like if you want to make a game that's like Counter-Strike, like we use that example, then you should never say, "Oh, my game's like Counter-Strike, but it has this." But over my years of experience, it sort of feels like that's a thing that actually works. It's an aha moment for people when you explain your game like that because it forces them to visualize like what Counter-Strike is like, and then you give them the twist on the end, and that twist is what can make something exciting.
With that, like explaining the idea itself, because if you say it's like Counter Strike, you already have like a huge like explanation base. Like they already know what Counter Strike is, right? Then they can
Hmm.
try to imagine the twist upon that, and then they could think like, yeah, that could be fun. You don't need to explain like for multiple hours what the game idea is, because they already know what Counter Strike is, right?
Yeah. And like with some personal experience, I find that a lot of people are very worried about making like a lot of people talk about niche games and making very niche games and worrying that they're going to limit their audience. But I think you're better off doing that than going for a general appeal, especially for indie games. That's like I've been taught by my like I've been told by my mates that I am fucking weird, like in the ways that I think. Like they always call
Yeah.
me out at parties like that's like there's a quote. That's such a Spolato thing to say. They'll tell me that. Like it's just like because I just think differently, and I think you need to have that. I'm going to call it like an artistic way of thinking. You need to have that artistic way in making your games, and that's something that I tried to do in one of my latest games called Dream Trials, where it's like you have those dolls chasing you, and if you take a picture of them, they start chasing you. Like, it's like we could have easily had it so those things just roam the map like any generic stealth game, and if they spot you, they run at you and they kill you. But who would think to make it so it's like you have a video camera and these dolls are just sitting there standing still, being all menacing, and if you take a photo of them, ka-ching, and then that's what causes them to rush you. Like I don't think I've seen another game that does it exactly like that. Um, but that's sort of the thinking that you have to employ in your games, I think, to be anywhere near successful. On itch.io, it's just like 95% of the horror games on there are just your classic A to B game where it's like you go in a room, which is probably like, a Unity asset anyway. You go in a
Yeah.
room, jump scare, you leave, go down the hallway, and you get like another jump scare, but it's not really, it's more like I call them fake jump scares. It's like they're designed to sort of like put you on edge but not scare you. But it's
Yeah.
just the same. It's like every time you play the game, it's the same game. And I can't stand those games, honestly. They're just really boring and generic for me. I like games that every time you play it, you can get a different experience.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah,
different
definitely.
ways to approach a problem, which I really like. I like it when players are forced to you give the player the opportunity to think for themselves, and they come up with different strategies, and it's just I love seeing when players do that. It's such an amazing thing.
That also comes down to like an idea that I have. It's the idea is like 80% of how good the game is. But it's also the thing that takes the less amount of time to like figure out. You just need to think about the idea for like a few hours, get a really good idea, then you can spend these months developing the game. But if the idea is bad, all these months are going to be like much less rewarding in the end either way because the game idea is bad. So I think it's very important to actually just spend more time on the idea than most do, because most people they can just think of an idea, okay, this sounds cool. Then they spend months just making the game and the idea isn't even good.
Yeah, yeah, and I also find that when you tie audio and visual together. A lot of people make that. Okay, so a lot of game
Okay.
developers, I think, struggle with. They're either really good individually, like they make good visuals, like good art, and they make
Okay.
good sound. But where they struggle is tying them together, right? And
Yeah.
that's how you layer stuff on, and you can make things weirder, which is better. If you can tie those two together in a unique, weird way, then I think that's when you can have a decent chance of success and making something that's truly memorable. Um, and like one thing, okay, so with that horror game that I was talking about before,
Yeah.
the best part that everyone likes is when you get caught by these dolls, they start singing to you like those childhood nursery rhymes, and that sticks in everyone's mind. It's like
Mm.
Ing, that thing. And that's the
Yeah.
part that people remember the most. Not not the cabinet that I made in this room, not the TV that's got like foggy and freaking it's got some wetness to it. People don't care about that stuff. What people
Yeah.
care about is what they come out the experience with.
Yeah.
That's the part that real people really remember. So again, it's how you use the audio and the visual to tie with each other. Because if just the art was good and the audio sucked, people wouldn't remember the game. If the audio was good but the visuals sucked and they didn't blend together, people would not like the game. It wouldn't do anything. So
Yeah. But what do you define as good audio?
good audio is when you can take you have to strive for an emotion from the player. You want to evoke some sort of emotion. Good
Yep.
audio is when you can evoke that emotion. So if you want them to be scared, right, your audio has to be designed in a way that gives you goosebumps, like when you listen to it or whatever. You can't just like, and it has to make sense with what's going on in the game world too. Like there has to be a story reason for why that audio happens. There has to be a visual reason for why that audio happens. If
Yeah.
if you can if you can give those things in context, then that's when that's when you can have good audio or good visuals.
Yeah. So if it's like tied to the emotion that you want to give, then it's good. If it like adds to that emotion,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
and every emotion has different ways of getting there. Like horror is really interesting because it's not in your best interest to load up the game and be jump scared in 1 second. And it's like,
Ah, no.
okay, well now there's no build up to it. You're not causing tension.
Yeah. The
Like
best horror
jump
games,
scares
they
are
have a really good build up.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's best when it's like within a random range, that tension. So you don't know if it's going to happen within the first minute or you don't know if it's going to happen after 5 minutes. If you can like get the player in a position where they don't know when it's coming, right? Then that's ideal. Like you're going to have a much easier time making the player feel like that. Other games are different though. If you want to make like a game, like a happy-go-lucky game, obviously you want to start strong and just like, give them that dopamine rush instantly so they
Yeah.
don't leave. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It's a bit of a learning process. My first horror game, yeah, it wasn't scary. I wanted it to be scary, but I couldn't make it scary, and I went through this trap of like just make everything louder when it comes to because I thought like I understood at the time that audio is very important,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand that just because it's loud doesn't make it good. I used to like boost that audio to like max levels, and it just wasn't. It just turned out to be ear rape at the end of the day. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't incredibly well executed. And if I just, everyone has to learn it though. It's a learning process.
Yeah. Because in your horror games, did you like try to lower the player's guard, or did you just build the anticipation?
So in my first horror games, I
Yeah.
understood that you do have to build anticipation, but I
Yeah.
didn't do it in a way that flows into the final result seamlessly. So one of my old games, I made this sci-fi horror game, and at the start, there's no threat whatsoever. You roam around this sci-fi map, and you get like little story elements. You understand that a monster came here and like destroyed killed the people and like
Okay.
destroyed half the environment. But you get past that section of the game, and then you get to the next part, and it's like there's no tension to seeing that monster. It just happens. So like like it wasn't a seamless transition, if that makes sense. It was like I gave the narrative, but it wasn't that scary, and then I went straight to like, oh, it's here, fucking, I'm gonna die now. Like it
Oh,
doesn't.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't like there wasn't the in between, the section in between that would have made the game so much better.
Yeah. When I'm thinking about a good like horror game with a good anticipation and also lowers like the player's guard, I just think of Iron Lung. It's like the perfect
Mm.
example of a game that does that well. Like I remember when I played Iron Lung because I made a documentary about it. I wanted to play it beforehand. I literally searched online like, is this the only thing I do? Because I thought the only thing in the game was to drive around. I thought that was safe. Like literally, I searched online for it. So I think yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
like a perfect, like picture perfect example of a horror game that does that really well.
yeah, I remember when I was much younger, when I was back in 11, 12 years old. That's back when Slender came out. And to be fair, times were different then as well. It was a lot easier to scare some because a lot of people were just getting introduced to gaming at that
Yeah,
time. And especially like indie horror. So like people didn't really understand like what could exist, and there wasn't many other examples of like media that like showed them, what was possible. So I remember at the time when I used to play Slender, we used to just there was this section in the middle of the map, and we just went in that building and we collected the page in there, and then we just went. It just kept looping that building. We didn't leave the building, because we didn't know how to play. We were stupid, but it was so scary doing that, because you just don't know what's possible, you know.
yeah,
And that's kind of if you can evoke that feeling of like, giving like sort of like no expectation of what's possible, then that's freaking you can nail the head right there. Like that,
yeah,
you're gonna make a good horror game.
yeah. But is Slender a good game? Like a good horror game example?
See, it's not for the time it was freaking peak,
Okay,
right? But if you look at it,
not now.
if you had to play it now, it's incredibly boring, right?
Okay,
Um, oh well, I don't know. I feel like it would still low key scare me a bit, but I know how the game works on the back end, and a lot of the player base know how the game sort of works. But back then, no one knew what. Again, it was a whole different time, you know. That's why it's more important now to really make your games weird, right? Or else you're just gonna be like compared to like other games which are just safe and generic. Like Slender, to be fair, it is a generic safe game nowadays.
yeah,
So if you had to remake that, yeah, I don't think you'd do too well. That's why it's important to make stuff weird.
yeah. And this also comes down to like the thing that I usually say on my channel, and this also like kind of connects to like overscoping the game and so on. It's
Mm.
like you should be able to explain your game in one sentence. If it doesn't sound fun in one sentence, like a one sentence game pitch, then the game idea is probably too complex or overscoped.
Yeah, I spoke about this in one of my old videos. Especially when you go to gaming conventions and you have students there showcasing their work, they don't know that skill yet. So they're
Oh,
there explaining their game and they're giving me all the details,
yeah,
especially if it's some like confusing card game, like a turn-based card game. Fuck me.
yeah.
When you over-explain those, my
You just
mind
get
like,
overwhelmed.
yeah, I get overwhelmed and it's just
Yeah,
like it feels like shit. But it's a skill that a lot of universities aren't teaching. I agree with you 100% though. You need to be able to explain it in one sentence. And that's why I don't mind the whole compare your game to another game sentence. Oh, my game's like Counter-Strike, except you can fly.
yeah, yeah.
It works.
Just really
It straight
easy
up
at
works.
explaining when you give an example.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
straight up works. Like it's one of the greatest sentences you can have because it creates like visualization for the player, and it also gets them thinking like oh, it's like this, but they've spun it on itself, or they've added some weird quirk that makes it super cool. Like
yeah,
and then you get them to jump straight in, and then you can softly guide them here and there, like, oh yeah, if you want to jump per se. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, the tagline should be a one sentence thing. So you're 100% right on
yeah.
that. And it's good
Definitely.
that you know it because you're so young as well. Like most people graduate uni at 21 and still don't know that skill,
Yeah.
you know?
And then they try to just make GTA 6 and yeah.
Yeah, And yeah, open world games. A lot of people have this obsession with making open world games, especially when they're like got such a small team. It's
I
just
get
not a
that
good
though.
strategy.
I get that. It sounds really fun to make, but you just need to realize that the more freedom you have in the game, the more complexity
Mm,
you are also going to have. And when you are a
exactly.
smaller
Yeah.
team or an individual, you can't have that much freedom in a game unless you want to spend like multiple years on one game, which is probably not in your best interest to do.
Yeah, like a lot of these studios that I cover on my channel, where they have
Yeah.
like these unpaid workers, there is a correlation between unpaid work and doing open world games. And
Okay.
absolutely hate it because it's like one of the worst types of games you can make, considering you have the unpaid work. It's like any other type of game would be better than that. But yet they still choose that. I think it's because they get to like make a big project.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it takes years to make a game like
Like
that.
it
I think
sounds
that's
so
kind of
impressive and so cool to just make this open world. Oh, you can do this, you can do this, you can do so many different things. But okay, but you still need to finish the game, right?
Yeah, and they don't even make it weird. Like, what separates that game from like
Yeah, why
Rust?
would
You
I
know,
not
that
just play Sims or GTA 6 or GTA
exactly.
5?
Like they talk
Whatever.
about features of like, oh, you can hunt animals and craft shit, but it's like every other freaking open world game does
Yeah.
that. What makes your game cool and unique and weird? Like,
Yeah.
give me something. Maybe you can like fucking turn the gravity off on will and like you can jump, turn off the gravity. That's one of my game ideas, don't steal it. But but still, that you need to have something like that to really flip it on its head. Do something cool, man. I
Yeah.
don't know. People are scared of being weird, but honestly, I think it's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah. That's a leverage you have as an indie dev, is that you can be weird. You're not like Rockstar that's going to take like billions of dollars in risk. You're an indie dev. You can take risks like this. You can make weird games. And also you can't compare to these like safe generic games when you're just one person, and these AAA games in your same genre, they literally have thousands of people working, right?
All right, let me give another example. So me and Andrew are working on this new game,
Yep.
and it was a 2D isometric game, sort of like one of my other games called Wavecade, where it's like you control a ship and you just have to shoot enemies and stuff. So we prototyped it, and we realized this is just a shit version of a previous game we made. Like
Yeah.
if we tried to make it a little bit weirder. We made it so it's like you can rotate the player because in our old game you couldn't rotate. You could only just move around the screen. But it was just boring, and we both knew it deep down. And then I just had to draw the line. I'm like, Andrew, like my brother, this is just it's just a shitty version of our previous game. It's not weird enough.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that now we're taking it down a different direction. We've swapped it from a 2D isometric game to one of those six-dimensional games, you know, games where you can like look around and fly in any direction. It's called a 6 Degrees of Freedom game.
Okay. Interesting.
And there's no good modern examples of games where you can play in that type of environment and kill each
Hmm.
other. There's plenty of single play experiences
Oh.
where you can fly around and like kill bots and progress through the level. Games like Descent and stuff. And if you want an even older example, there's a game called Forsaken, which was released on the Nintendo 64. And it's
Oh,
a
I
game where
see.
you can like,
Interesting.
yeah. So we want to make our own version of that. Um, I also just want something that I can like give my community, and we just do tournaments, just play with each other. Just something that we can do for fun, can give away money to like a first place thing. I want some sort of like competitive game. Um,
Yeah.
but see, that's a weird game. That's a game that not everyone can play. You know, you're gonna have people getting motion sick, but that's like we can't do nothing about that. I get motion sick with VR, so I don't play VR. But that
Ah,
doesn't mean that VR games shouldn't be made. You know, there is
no.
a niche for it, but I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. 100%. Like you can't just make everyone happy. You have to
Mm.
focus on something.
Yeah, like with my game Wavecade,
Yeah.
um, we tried our best to make it have as much general appeal as possible. We
Yeah.
implemented a weird feature where depending on where you position yourself on the screen, that dictates the game speed. So if you put yourself real down below on the screen, the game goes really slow. So what this allows is
Oh.
for a beginner player to have an easier time and learn how the game works
Yeah.
before they're just thrusted into this hyper fucking fast shit going on and then they die and it's just frustrating. But then the people who actually played the game at the end of the day were those hardcore players that were good at the game anyway. So we tried our best to make it general, but it didn't end up really eventuating to the general audience playing it anyway. So you might as well just, at that point, you might as well just niche it, you know?
Yeah.
You might as well just make it appeal to one particular group of people.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful in basically all aspects when you are an individual trying to like make something. It might be games, might be like a YouTube channel, whatever it might be. Just going niche and realizing that you can't make everyone happy is like that's what you should do, because you can't compare to these big studios in these general vague things. You need to focus on like a specific group of people.
Yeah, yeah, actually that's a good point as well. That's
Yeah.
something that sorry, I just burped. A lot of YouTubers, smaller YouTubers don't they don't like look at completely. Like they just try to go down a general route. Like they just react to. I hate reaction channels that react to everything.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
absolutely hate that. Just like react, I hate it because it's like you're never gonna have the same. You might, but you're never gonna have the majority of your audience watching your next video. You know, that you're not going to be able to keep the same people, and I just
Yeah.
think that's a terrible way to grow your channel. You want to you want to have the same people coming back. You want to have return customers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or return business.
Yeah. That applies to both YouTube and games as well. Probably other aspects as well. Yeah. Just having like one avatar that you focus on. That's what you should do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, I've made a very wide range of games. I've made more horror games, but I have made, shoot 'em ups, made fucking platformers, made collectathons, and FPSs. Like I've made a bunch of different games, but yeah, like I feel like it's good to just find the genre that you love the most and stick to that. I feel like that's honestly,
Yeah.
like I love the. Yeah, I think.
But
that's
also
a great
you have made different games, different genres, right? But
Yeah.
that's very different from having a niche like a genre and having one avatar. Those are very different. Because when you are an avatar, like an individual that you have in your mind when you're making games, they can enjoy multiple types of games, right? I like City Skylines and I also like Beat Saber, right? So you can kind of figure out what this person likes, like your avatar, and then you can make games to your avatar, and your avatar is most likely going to be like someone similar to you. So if someone is similar to you, they're probably going to enjoy your games, and that's your avatar. That's what I mean.
That's actually a really good. That's actually a really good point. Maybe it should be less about genre and more about what feelings you want to evoke from the player.
Yeah, it's more the player,
can always-
not the genre.
Yeah.
Not like you only need pixel art 64 times 64. It's like the avatar.
Yeah, because nothing stops you from blending, feelings together as well. That's another thing that's really interesting. When you can make players feel multiple things at the same time, you can give them like, if you can mix satisfaction with horror, where it's like some people you can have it so there's a horror enemy chasing you, but you have the ability to manipulate that enemy whenever you want. So like the simplest way you can do it is just give the player a gun. I personally don't like that. But you can do things that like prevent the enemy from conquering you. Like Dead by Daylight. You ever played that game before?
No, I haven't.
Basically, it's a game of like survivors versus like a killer. And the survivors have the ability to like delay the killer and hinder the killer's ability to kill them. Like you can put barricades up and like prevent them from, killing you. But you can blend, because it's a scary game, but you can also blend like the feeling of outplaying your opponent with fear.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get
That's kind of really cool. Like actually that could be a video in itself, just blending feelings together. Like there's nothing wrong with having multiple things going at the same time. That is a way to make your game weird.
Yeah. That's probably an example you can see in movies as well. When you watch a movie that you really like, you probably have a lot of different emotions, not just one, you're really scared or you're really interested. There's probably going to be different ones. When you're watching a movie or like you're playing a game that you really like, you can also notice this.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
movies and TV shows like to have multiple storylines going on at once, and then they eventually event come together, and sort of you can see how they interact with each other.
yeah,
Um, though there's nothing wrong with just having one storyline and having multiple things happening with that too. Like that's for indie, that makes sense. You want to have just one storyline or one thing happening, and you have multiple like emotions coming at once. I think that's honestly super powerful. But you
yeah,
just have to. Another way to just do it is just play. You have to play like if you want to make an indie horror game, you're best off just seeing what everyone else is doing, um, and then trying to make your game as weird as possible. Like really think about how the core gameplay functions and seeing if you can like do the opposite of what would be expected.
yeah.
I feel like
Um,
I feel like that would
because I
work.
think this is an interesting topic. Because as you said to me last time we called, like 90% of games on itch.io, they are horror games, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why. You probably do, but I don't know why. But do you recommend that people or indie developers, when they are beginning, they just make horror games, or do you recommend they like branch out to different genres, try to be more creative with your genre?
I do like horror. The reason why I think horror is a great genre to start with, or just try to make the player feel horrified, is because you can sort of get away with shittier execution of things if
Yeah.
you just get the basics right.
Okay.
So, like I said before, even though in those old games, I boosted the fuck out of the audio and made it so it was like almost ear rape and it was a bit shitty, it
Yeah.
still it still was interesting to the player at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like it's easier to scare a player than make a player feel happy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because especially when it comes to audio, a good way to build tension is to layer audio that doesn't make sense with each other. Because that naturally just builds tension by itself. You have like a keyboard. If you press the two notes that are next to each other, like the white and black, press them at the same time, it's going to feel really uneasy. So you don't even have to like, there's no real method to it other than just like making it bad, if that makes sense. Things can be bad but good, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm
But I
trying to
get what you
get at
mean.
here?
I get what you mean because horror, it's kind of different than
Mm.
other games. Because if you have really bad graphics, for example, you can just turn down the light, right?
Yeah, you can have the game be mostly darkness, so
Yeah.
there's no need to put incredible detail in everything if it's
No.
going to be mostly dark.
Yeah. But that's like I made a prototype because I had this idea where you had to navigate with like sonar, and then there was like a monster in a
Mm.
hedge or a hedge maze, whatever. That's the idea that I had. I scrapped the idea because it wasn't fun. But even though I turned the lights down a lot, I still had a lot of problems with like the lighting also. So, and also the graphics actually,
Why was it boring to you?
because the player was navigating in the dark mainly, and then they used sonar, and they had to use sonar to navigate, and it was just kind of annoying, right? To just move around with sonar and in the dark because you can't fucking see anything.
Interesting. See, I'm
Yeah,
thinking of that idea, and it sort of ties back to the start of the video. Like, Sonar's cool, but I think that alone isn't enough to make it weird, you know?
yeah.
Um,
This
if
was
you
before
if
you
you added
introduced this to me, like the
Yeah, if
weirdness.
you added one more weird element to it, maybe if every time you ping, maybe the player has the option to ping their sonar. It's not always constantly going, so you tap it.
Yeah, yeah. That's
You
what
can
they do.
see,
They
yeah,
um they pinged it with space.
but you can make it so every time you ping the sonar, the enemy becomes aware of your position, right? But you need to ping that sonar to know where to go,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
like
I
you
was
would get
actually
in the
thinking about that. Like the monster kind of like smelling where you are if you ping, so you have to be conscious of when you do. Because you
yeah.
kind of have to. You can't just have the player like be able to spam sonar with no consequences, right? But it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
navigating around, and it didn't like light my soul on fire with the idea. It wasn't that fun.
Was it like an indoor, was it a closed in environment, like an indoor
Yeah, it was a
map, or was it
maze.
going to be like a, yeah, see, um,
And
since sonar,
that with sonar, that was really like really irritating game to
yeah,
play.
that's, I
Yeah.
was just about to point that out because you're
Yeah.
seeing sonar, you're seeing like a, you want the player to be able to travel freely on that plane. You know, if you've got a maze, you're sort of you're
Yeah, that was
limiting
the
that
thing.
movement, you know?
When you ping the sonar, you could see maybe like 3 meters in front of you, and then there was like a wall, right, in the maze.
Mm.
So you can see anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that would be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
But
So
I
the
feel
idea is
if
still
you,
important.
yeah, it's a good base, but it needs that extra zing on
Yeah.
top. Like if you add that extra spice, don't know what spice that is. Could be cayenne pepper, could be turmeric, but if you just gotta add that one that one spice and that
Yeah.
would flip it around. Maybe oh now I'm thinking of like flipping it. The enemy has the radar. Okay, yeah, there's so many things you can do with that. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. If you're watching this and you want to use this idea, just go ahead. I scrapped the idea, so you can go ahead. But it's
Definitely.
important to not just continue development on games that you don't really like. It was
Yeah,
really
you have
important for
to.
me that I scrapped the idea because I didn't enjoy developing the game. I also didn't
Yeah,
enjoy playing the game, and I think those are very correlated as well because the idea wasn't
yeah,
fun for me.
super important. Like if you're testing your game and you're bored, then
Yeah,
that's not a good game.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I recommend also. Um, when you are making a new game, always put it up the idea first, then ask yourself, is the idea fun? Is this
mm,
too hard for me to make? And kind of finish it within the deadline that I set, like 90 days, for example. That's the 3 things I
yeah,
always say after they made a prototype that you should ask yourself.
yeah. That's why I hate A to B games so much because imagine developing those. It's like it's so boring because you know how everything's done. Like a lot of people love to make puzzle game, and I actually think that's a good idea. But
Yeah. My
I
newest
would
game is a
never
puzzle
design
game,
a
actually.
cool. I'm
Yeah,
going to give
my
you
newest
one
prototype.
piece of advice for that puzzle game.
Yeah, please.
You should design your puzzles so that you're given a randomized variation of it every time you play. So it's not always the same exact puzzle. Like if you're looking for a door code, for example, and the code
Yeah,
is fucking never code it so the code is always 1414 or whatever. Make it
yeah,
so like it's always a unique code and that the player must look around for and even where the player must look would be great if it's like randomized too.
yeah.
Um,
Because in my
super
game,
important.
there's like different effects. Like I won't spoil the entire idea because I really like the idea, but I told you like the core of it. There's like different rooms, each has one effect. Do you think it would make more sense to have the effect, like have a slight variance, or the rooms themselves?
I've this is so interesting. I've actually designed from what I'm hearing, I've actually made this exact game, like the thing. I made a game called Edgar's Room. I'll show you it later.
Okay,
It's a
show me
game where there's
later.
16 rooms. The
Okay,
rooms are this. I made this game ages ago as well, so
okay.
it's good and it's trash. If I had to make it now, it'd be way better.
The idea of
There's
the game.
16 rooms. The idea I think is fucking A tier, but the
Yeah,
execution I think was okay. But I would make it much better now. There's 16
okay.
rooms, and those rooms are always the same, right? The game at the start selects four of those rooms to be puzzle rooms, and they're the rooms you have to go to. Okay? And each room has its own unique puzzle, and each puzzle has a cup like 3 to 4 variations each. So every time you play the game, you're going to be given different puzzles. You might get the same puzzle 2 runs in a row or 3 runs in a row because that's just how math works. But it should be a different experience every time you play the game.
Okay.
Um,
But there's no like
like
random like map generation or like effects. It's just a
no,
like selection. Yeah.
yep. The selection is the randomized part.
Okay.
So what I did, I'll explain the premise, and okay, you tell me if you think this game's weird. Okay.
Okay.
So every room, so you start the game in a random room, and they have doors that kind of like go to the other rooms, okay? Like if you spin around, you'll see doors. So in every room, there's a big podium with a big button, right? So every time you enter the room, the game like goes really dark. You can't really see anything, and you can hear stuff, and you must hear if the enemy is in the room with you. There's like this guy called Edgar, and he's like some old dude, and he like coughs or he does makes noise or whatever. So it's a listening game, right? And
Oh,
if he's in the room, you have to press. You have another ability where you get to like flash like a really loud keychain. It makes like a really loud noise, and that scares him off. Okay. So if you hear him in the room, you got to do that, and then you press the button, and that turns the makes the light in the room turn on, and that's when you can do a puzzle. But you're on a time limit, so you go in this room, and
mm,
there's like a counter that ticks down, and you have to decide whether in that time whether or not he's in the room with you. And if you make the wrong decision, if you decide to ring your flash your keychain thing, and he's not in the room with you, you get jump scared instantly and die. So sort of like Five Nights at Freddy's type thing. So it's all about
it's very
making the right
interesting.
decision based on what you see and hear.
But you talked about
So
the time limit, right?
yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea to have in like most puzzle games like this?
So how it works is there is a time limit for solving the puzzle, but once you're in the puzzle, the time limit goes down way slower. So you get way more time to relax a little bit and like figure out the puzzle. But during that moment where you have to decide whether or not he's in the room with you, the timer ticks down way faster. So you have to make a decision pretty quickly. You can't just sit there and just be like, la 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 la, do I hear him? And it's
Yeah,
like 20 seconds later, you'll die. If you run out of time, you lose as well. So
yeah,
that builds
Bec-
tension.
yeah. That makes me think of something because in the game idea that I have right now that I'm prototyping, I don't really have a way for the player to die or lose, right? And that's a
Yeah.
problem because you kind of need in a game you need like something that the player does, like player action. You need to win, also need to lose, and you need
Mm.
feedback.
Yeah, you
So
definitely need
I don't have the
something.
losing. Do you have any ideas for in a puzzle game how they could lose? Is it best to just add a timer?
No, the other way to lose is if you enter a new room, you have to play that listening game. So if you play that listening game wrong, that's when you can lose as well. There's two ways of
Hmm.
losing, which makes the game weirder. It's not just one way to lose. I think that's kind of cool that there's multiple ways of like failing.
Yeah, definitely.
You could
Yeah,
implement something like that,
it's kind of similar, but
refined version of that.
the
Mm.
movement is more like if you've seen Danny, like Carson.
Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
fast, so you can run and stuff.
No, but no, not like fast paced, but the physics is kind of similar. So you can kind of drag objects in the same way, like it's very like physics heavy.
Yeah, yeah, those would make
And
good
it's not like
puzzles as well.
horror. Yeah, it's more like the same art style as Carson because that's very simple. Like if you just make a
Yeah, yeah.
prototype in Unity 3D, it's going to look like Carson, right? That's
Mm.
um that's the art style I'm going to have. So it's kind of different. It's not like some dark horror thing in the beginning, as you said.
Mm. Okay. So so you solve puzzle. Are you gonna follow the same sort of technique of like there's more rooms, but like only some of those have puzzles and it's different every time, or are you gonna like how many like how's the gameplay gonna work? Is there gonna be multiple rooms?
Yeah, there's going to be multiple rooms. There's going to be a hub, right?
Mm.
That's going to be like the theme is a museum, like a sci-fi museum, and then there's going to be multiple of these rooms where you have one effect in each. Like
Hmm.
I'm still in the prototype phase, so I've not like refined this idea, but that's like the general premise, right? Um, yeah, so you're in like a hub. That's the thing.
Mm.
But I think it would
Okay.
make more sense to like slightly change the room itself rather than just remove some rooms from one save to another.
Yeah, of course. You should always try your best to reuse as much as you can per playthrough. So design
Yeah.
like one map and then make it so it's like every room can be used, um, or at least looked in every time you play it. But whether or not there's something important there, will be dictated by chance. But yeah, I think that's kind of cool. What about it is going to be like super weird though?
The weird thing are going to be the effects themselves. They're going to be, I just want to make them like as weird as possible while still being able to actually like finish the room. So I just
And
want to
what do
think
you
of
mean
like
by
some,
like, can you give me an example of like an effect? You don't have to tell me
yeah, an
what's
effect
actually
I
going to
have
be
right
used.
now is that you can press the button, activate the effect,
Mm.
and then every object that's draggable is going to like freeze. There's not going to be gravity on them. It's going to be kinematic. But you can still drag objects around, and when you drag them, it has gravity obviously, so you can move things around. So you can make like paths, for example, out of objects because they freeze midair and you can still move them. And you can use that to solve the puzzle. That's one effect I made this week.
Okay, cool.
Another one is that
I can't wait
like
to see that.
everything bounces like a trampoline. So you can move something, you can like release it, and then it's just going to bounce like everywhere.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That's actually quite cool. I
yeah,
didn't think in my puzzles I had a single one that did any bouncing. I found that when I made puzzles, there's only so much you can do in terms of like what the puzzle is about. Like you can do like anything could be in the puzzle, but in the end it just eventuates to like either it's an object hunt puzzle or it's a few listening puzzles, counting puzzles, like you got to do some maths or weight,
oh,
especially
interesting.
like you got to calculate with like scales and stuff. But they all
Yeah,
eventuate to their own like there's only so much you can do in terms of like parent puzzles. Like they
yeah, I was thinking about
if you know
that.
what I
It's
mean.
very limited actually.
Yeah, it's sort of limited, but you want to have some variety. That would certainly help. You don't want them doing the same thing every time.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting. Do you have any success on Steam?
Uh, the most successful game I put on Steam is Wavecade, but would I call it successful in the grand scheme of things? No. It did way
Yeah,
better on
because that's
mobile.
free on itch as well.
The demo's free on itch. We don't have the main game
Oh,
on
it's a
itch.
demo. Okay,
So
okay.
yeah, it's like a demo. So on mobile, see, on mobile, it used to be a paid game, but then we made it free to play. And then we obviously compensated it. Everyone who bought the game pretty much got the DLC for free. So we sort of compensated them in that way. Um, but I've never made like a truly successful game, and the majority of people haven't anyway. And I don't think and if you want to make content and do YouTube stuff, I don't even think it's really necessary. You got plenty of YouTube creators who um, haven't made successful games, but I don't think that means that they can't try to make money or try to make content. You know,
Yeah,
even creators like Blackthorn Prod, which I don't really like, because of how they run their channel and how they do their challenges. It even though they've never made a truly successful game, it doesn't. I don't think that means that they shouldn't be able to do what they do and make the content just because they haven't made anything successful.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I saw the video from, or like a small snippet from like the expose video, and then it said like they've never made like a hugely successful Steam release. Like I just sat there thinking, well, you can still teach people how to make like player movement scripts, even though you haven't made a hugely successful Steam
Yeah,
game.
I just thought that was a bad point. When people brought that up, I thought like, yeah, that's not really that good of a point. You can be a coach and not have played, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That doesn't mean you're a bad coach.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like most good
100%.
coaches, they aren't like world champions either way, but they can coach
Mm.
world champions, but they have never been themselves. Yeah,
Yeah, and you shouldn't be able to. You have a course as well. Just
yeah.
like it, just because you haven't made a successful game doesn't mean you can't sell that course. And I
I
think
think it's
anyone
a
who
benefit
tells,
actually, because if you have someone with like 10 years of experience that don't like they started 10 years ago and they're giving advice on how to start, I think that's going to be much worse than my advice, for example, because I only started actually learning game development and like how to code a few years ago, like 1 or 2 years ago.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing with experience. I don't think it truly matters at the end of the day, as long as your content's good. Like if people like your content, then who the heck cares if you've got 2 years experience versus someone who has 20 years experience?
Yeah, yeah,
If your content's good, who the fuck cares? Honestly, like.
yeah,
But yeah, I thought this was an interesting video. I think we'll wrap it up here.
yeah, definitely.
It's a pleasure talking to you, Kevin, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yep. See ya. Thank you so much for watching, guys.